It's funny. Some of the most powerful lessons we can learn about our purpose and how to be resilient, they don't come from the latest self-help book. They come from these ancient stories. Today, we're going to dive into one of them and see how a moment of complete breakdown can actually set the stage for an unbelievable breakthrough.
So let's just start with the big question for our whole time together. What if that confusing, really challenging, maybe even painful season of your life, what if it isn't the end of the story? What if it's actually the setup for your greatest calling? Just think about that for a second. All right, so our story kicks off way back in the 8th century BCE. And the setting? It's a whole nation that's just gripped by fear and uncertainty. To really get the breakthrough, you first got to understand the breakdown that was happening all around.
Okay, so for over 50 years, that's a whole lifetime for most people back then, King Uzziah was the guy. He was the symbol of stability and strength for the kingdom of Judah. But his reign ends in total disgrace, and when he dies, it creates this huge power vacuum. You can just imagine the anxiety in the air. The one leader who had defined an entire era was suddenly gone. And it's right there, in that exact moment of fear, that a prophet named Isaiah gets a vision that changes everything.
And isn't that just so true for us? It's a timeless principle, really. Think about it. The job loss that forces you to figure out what you're really passionate about. The personal crisis that completely reorders your priorities. It's in those confusing seasons, when all our own plans have fallen apart, that we're often the most open to a new and usually much better direction. So right in the middle of all this national chaos, Isaiah goes to the temple, and what he sees there completely shatters and redefines his reality. And this moment, well, it teaches us something so crucial. Getting close to true greatness has a funny way of showing you exactly where you really stand.
Isaiah has this absolutely overwhelming vision. He sees God high and exalted, and he's surrounded by these incredible angelic beings called seraphim. And they're just crying out, "Holy, holy, holy." The whole temple is shaking. This isn't just some nice spiritual picture. It's a head-on collision with ultimate perfection and power. And what's Isaiah's gut reaction? Is it excitement? Does he puff out his chest? No way. It's this deep, painful recognition of how small and flawed he is. He basically says, "I'm ruined. I'm a total mess." You see, the closer he got to absolute perfection, the more clearly he saw his own imperfection. And this brings us to a huge point here. Real growth, real growth. It doesn't start with you comparing yourself to other people to feel a little better. It starts with an honest look in the mirror, measuring yourself against the standard you actually want to reach. It's simple, right? You can't fix what you're not willing to face. But the story doesn't stop there with Isaiah feeling terrible about himself. What happens next is this powerful blueprint for how purpose is actually formed. It shows us that those really difficult, painful experiences in our lives, they're often not punishment, they're preparation. They're positioning us for what's next. So, the path forward unfolds in 3 stages. First, you have the revelation. He sees the huge gap between where he is and where he needs to be. Then comes this painful but totally necessary purification. An angel literally touches his lips with a burning coal. Now, think about that. That's intense. But this isn't a detour from his destiny. It's the very thing preparing him for it, burning away all the junk that would hold him back. And only then, after all that, does the commission come. So after that intense process, when God finally asks, "Whom shall I send?" Isaiah is ready. He's not the same guy who walked into the temple that day. And his famous response, "Here I am, send me." It doesn't come from a place of arrogance. It comes from a place of being completely renewed, made possible only by that cleansing fire. Okay, so let's fast forward a bunch of years. We meet another major player in this story, King Hezekiah. And guess what? He's facing his own massive crisis. His story shows us a whole other side of this journey. What happens when the vision isn't enough, and you find yourself in a moment of pure, raw desperation? Can you imagine this? Hezekiah gets a death sentence delivered by the prophet Isaiah himself. But look at his response. He doesn't just roll over and accept it. He turns his face to the wall and he prays with this raw, honest, desperate intensity. He weeps bitterly. Sometimes our polite little requests just don't match the urgency of the moment. And the result of that desperate prayer? An extra 15 years of life, just like that. Before Isaiah can even walk out of the palace, God sends him right back with a new message. "I heard your prayer, I saw your tears, and I'm going to add 15 years to your life." This is so powerful because it shows us that God isn't offended by our intensity. He's often moved by our honesty. But here's the key. That extra time wasn't just a gift for Hezekiah to kick back and enjoy. No. When you survive something that should have taken you out, that borrowed time, it comes with a divine assignment. An extended life demands an expanded purpose. So now, let's bring these two incredible stories together. On one hand, you have Isaiah's mountaintop vision. On the other, you have Hezekiah's valley of desperation. Separately, they're amazing stories. But when you put them together, that's when you get the complete picture of how a truly meaningful life is forged. So here's the big idea that ties it all together. The vision, that aha moment of clarity like Isaiah had, that gives you your mission. It points you in the right direction. But the crisis, that moment of desperation like Hezekiah faced, that's what forges your calling. It gives you the strength, the humility, and the credibility to actually walk out that mission. You need both.
So let's just recap the 5 big lessons we've pulled from all this. First, remember your breakthrough often shows up looking a lot like a breakdown. Second, true vision isn't about making you feel proud, it's about revealing your true condition so you can actually grow. Third, that tough season of preparation isn't punishment, it's positioning you for promotion. Fourth, don't be afraid to get real and desperate when the moment calls for it. And finally, if you're given a second chance, remember that an extended life demands an expanded purpose.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Your vision gives you direction. It shows you where to go, but your crisis gives you credibility. It gives you the story and the strength to get there. Both are absolutely essential. So which one are you in right now? Are you on the mountaintop getting a vision, or are you down in the valley facing a crisis? And more importantly, how are you going to use it to shape what comes next?